डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी।
स्वाध्यायः परमं तपः।
ડોક્ટર બાબા સાહેબ આંબેડકર ઓપન યુનિવર્સિટી પ્રસ્તુત કરે છે સ્વ અધ્યયનના માર્ગે આપના જ્ઞાનને પ્રમાણિત કરી આપતો એક વિશિષ્ટ શૈક્ષણિક કાર્યક્રમ જ્યોતિર્ગમય। જ્યોતિર્ગમય અંતર્ગત સ્વ અધ્યયનની રાહે આપે સંચિત કરેલા જ્ઞાનનું સમાજના પ્રતિષ્ઠિત વિદ્વાનોની મદદથી મુક્ત અને પારદર્શક પરીક્ષણ પદ્ધતિ વડે વેલિડેશન કરાવી સર્ટિફિકેટ તેમજ ડિગ્રી એનાયત કરી શકાશે। સ્વ અધ્યયન વડે ઉપાર્જિત વિદ્યાનું સાતત્ય જળવાય તે માટે જ્યોતિર્ગમય કાર્યક્રમ હેઠળ સમાજના સિદ્ધહસ્ત વિદ્વાનોના જ્ઞાનને પરિષ્કૃત કરી તેમને ગાઈડશીપ પણ એનાયત કરાશે। તો ચાલો સમાજના અનેક અજ્ઞાત એકલવ્યોને સ્વ અધ્યયનના દીપકથી પ્રજ્ઞાનના ઉદય પ્રતિ દોરી જઈએ। ડોક્ટર બાબા સાહેબ આંબેડકર ઓપન યુનિવર્સિટી, જ્યાં સ્વાધ્યાયનો દીપક કદી ઓલવાતો નથી। આજે જ લોગ ઓન કરો www.baou.edu.in।
Topic that is given in the paper is research methodology, but I'll be talking or rather concentrating on information resources and use of libraries for research purposes. Because that is one of the important components when it comes to research methodology. Whatever that you have to do is what is called literature search. So I'll be talking of the literature search part. Next please. Well, the libraries and academicians and scholars have potentials to induce a change. The changes could be influence of government officials, generally is not our cup of tea. Influence, you can build life-changing technology, what the Apple and devices like that. It's completely changed the way we live now. But again, that is can be done selectively. Yet another is influence stock exchange, money center, again, that selectively can be done by entrepreneurs. So the last is influence knowledge center. The libraries have a broad area, influence the universities and academic institutions. Next please. So our role is generally confined to influence knowledge. Next. 2300 years ago until 2000, the libraries were the hub of activity. But now, suddenly things have changed. You don't see many people sitting in the library. The reason is that the technology is coming to your house. You can sit at home, search for knowledge that you are looking for and get it. Although the belief that Google has everything is wrong. What Google has is very selective part of, in fact, 90% of the information is hidden in what is called deep web. Deep web is something which is not available when you search Google. These basically deep web are resources which are behind password, which are behind access technology. So unless you have access management system built into it, like login passwords and all that, you can't search what is available in emails because that is hidden behind passwords. Likewise, the databases that I'll be talking about are all hidden behind web. It is called deep web, and there are other technologies or terminology for that. So today's Google is supposed to have everything that one can think of, but that is not true, and especially as a researcher, you must know that. Next please. A university is a string of buildings around a library. This was Radhakrishnan himself. The library had that important. Of course, things are changing, but the library does have a role to play, even in Google environment. Next please. So this is the conditions of the library. A lot of books, a lot of journals, but no users. This is what is happening most of the time. But I mean, we need to do something more. What does a researcher require? He requires access to e-books or other printed books, journals, manuscripts, primary sources of information, access to research funding opportunity. That is very important. You need to look for new projects, apply for it, and then attempt new research. Information and equipment, accessory, labs, chemicals, timely access to research work by his peers and contemporaries, filtered to include articles from qualitative journals. So this is what you need. The problem these days is that you have too much of information. So selecting information is one important aspect. In fact, there is a resource called Thousands of Science, Thousands of Medicine and Thousands of Science. What these people do is they'll select only 1,000 articles in a given discipline and put it across to you. So only important research is picked up by these people and put it out there. This is Thousands of Medicine, Thousands of Science. There are a number of them which are selective research output. Now, self-service online environment which support in terms of library portals, federated search engines, resource selection, aids, and etc. So now that you have too much, you also need interfaces that can search across all the resources that are available. For example, in a university, we give about 8,000 journals. 8,000 journals are given by 28 publishers. So as a researcher, you have to go to each one of these 28 portals or publishers to get your information. So now these days there are technology that allows federated search. Conduct word search and it will go to all 28 publishers, bring out information that we require. So this is what a user requires. Seamless access to subscribe e-resources. What happens now in the current environment, even if you have resources, you can access them only when you are in colleges or universities. You can't do that when you are at home. But technology is now available which allows you to search resources as a authorized user from anywhere. So these technologies are called EasyProxy, Athens, Shibboleth. There are a number of them. You don't have to worry about how it works, but your libraries should have them. I mean, if you are working for an institution or university, ask for these technologies so that sitting at home also, you can access these resources. Next, please. Today, user is highly aware and computer savvy. You're all in an age where you are carrying your devices and you search internet from your mobile. So it's a technology, you are all technology savvy. There was a time when we used to search a database called Dialog. The Dialog databases were like the number of time you spend, the amount of time you spend, and the number of articles you download, the bill would come accordingly. So a user will not dare to do that because the bill would come in dollar, huge, so he'll have to depend on a librarian. So we'll sit with the user, search for terminology or whatever they want, then ask for a printout. The printout would come by air from US. The Dialog database was in US. Things have now changed. Sitting here, you can do everything. But that was a time when the user would depend on the library or librarians. But things have now changed. There is the model that we used in Dialog's day is not there. You can search as long as you want. You can download as many articles as you need. So things have completely changed. The user prefers electronic resources and convenience that it offers. There's a survey that was done on undergraduate students in US. According to that survey, if the information is available online, it exists. Otherwise, it does not exist for a user in America. Things are coming to that end here also. That people don't go to library. They'll search the web and that's it. So users are impatient, they are demanding, and their expectations are very high. Next, please. Well, my researcher prefers to do the work on his own, but he would like to go to the library if the library have domain expertise, if they can provide in-depth assistance and knowledge of research methodology, which is essential, awareness of publishing trends and channels, knowledge to assess information quality, credibility and accuracy, and well trained in techniques of information retrieval. In fact, if you search Google, you will find for any term that you can use, you will find thousands of resources. But there are technology even that is applicable in Google to selectively look for things. The next speaker, Kruti, will be giving some example to you on that. Next, please. How the user access information? There are surveys done as to how people go for seeking information. Next, please. Now, in a survey done by the librarians and scientists, they were asked the name of top scientific and medical search information that they use and that they are aware of. The scientists said they need Google, Yahoo, and PubMed. These were the things that they said. But the librarians said they need Science Direct, Web of Science, Medline, JSTOR, Springer. These are what is available in what is called deep web. These are subscribed resources. But up there, Google, Yahoo, PubMed is open to all and one can search. So this is the difference in perception. While what you get from Google, Yahoo, and PubMed may not be authenticated. I'm saying may not be. They may be authenticated, but may not be. Whereas what is published in Science Direct, Web of Science, Medline, JSTOR, they're all authenticated information. As you know, when you publish an article, that article goes for a peer review. If the peer or expert in a field says that this is good, publishable, then only it goes for publication. So what is available in the second set of document is authenticated information. Whereas in the first set, it may or may not be authenticated. Okay. Next, please. Now, the college student, when they were asked the same question, they said 89% of the time they go to Google or other search engines, 62 Google, 2% library websites, 2% online databases, 1% email, rather online news, online bookstores, 1%, and 0% for instant messaging. So this was a survey done by OCLC in a book titled Perceptions of Libraries and Information Centers Resources. Next, please.
Sir, excuse me, what will be the fate of the library after 10 or 20 years, because everybody is going to electronic?
Yeah, I'll be touching some part of it, yes. But recently in 2013, University of California, which have 10 campuses, University of California has 10 campuses, they appointed a committee, and their report was that we need to reinvest in the libraries. The US is the first one to catch on with technology. They have a lot of resources, a lot of online databases and everything. But in 2013, they submitted a report and they said we need to reinvest in the libraries. So libraries are going to exist. Of course, things are changing. I mean, if you talk of books, a lot of them are coming in e-format. Talk of journals, publishers are now coming up with a model that we will not be printing journals unless you want it. So journals coming only in e-format. If you want, you can print on demand. So that kind of model are going to come. But the libraries there are different reasons why library would exist for some more times, I would say. Library, it is said the library is what? It is nothing but a subsidy that a university gave or university is given so that people can come and use that subsidy. It's like a subsidy. And the model of subsidy may change. Tomorrow, as a researcher, you might say, all right, all I need is, say, $1,000 to take care of my information requirement. Your subsidy may come to you directly. So it's a method of subsidy. But let's go for reality checking. You said libraries are disappearing. Let's see what is happening actually. Next. Now, the growth of journal, e-format, e-journal started in 1989, 10 journals. And in 2000, we have 51,000 journals. Okay? 51,000 electronic format of journals. Printed books, in 1989, it was about, I think it's 1 lakh 2,000. And in 2007, it is 20 lakhs or what? No, 2 lakhs. So I mean, it's a yearly figure. It's not cumulative. It's a yearly figure. Now, let's go to the next slide. Now, this is a Ulrich International Periodical Directory that lists all kind of journals. In 2013, they had 3 lakhs titles. 3 lakh titles are listed. Remember, there are only 51,000 that are available in electronic format. And there are print independent journals that are 41,000. Print dependent. That means if you take print only, then you will get this 41,000 journals. Otherwise, you won't. So look at this figure, 3 lakh versus 51. Only 1/4, or rather less than 1/4 is available. So print is still there. And if you look at the Indian scenario, the total number of journals must be something like 2,000, 2,500. I think not more than 500 are available in electronic format. So we are heavily print based. Next. Books, number of books that are published. In USA, it has grown from 68,000 to 2,88,000 in 2009. In UK, again, there is a growth, but that not that much. So there is a growth in electronic, in the print books. The growth is 322% and 22% in UK. So number of printed books are increasing. But there is another category, which is print on demand. The print on demand is increasing huge, 76 lakhs books print on demand. That means if you need, you can print them. Otherwise, it is available in electronic form. This is a huge growth. And this also means that if you want your books to be compiled with a number of databases that you want, you can order for that. Like for example, this particular workshop, concentrate on some aspects. This would be done, delivered to you. That is the scenario that is going to come. Next, please. Electronic books. It was said that there are more written about electronic books than it actually goes into electronic books. This was in 98, but things have now changed. There are more than 10 lakhs books that are available in electronic media. There are different kind of model. You have subscription model, you have perpetual model, you have model where you can pay once and buy it permanently. So all kind of models are available. There are all kind of publishers who are there in traditional publishing. They are also publishing. Springer, Wiley, Elsevier, T&F, they all have these kind of models. Hong Kong University Library has access to more than 1 million e-books. Of course, many of them are in Chinese, but they are there. ENLIST, the project that we run from ImplementNet Center, has 97,000 books available for colleges. So I'm sure if, how many of you are from colleges? Can I have a hand raise? Okay. Are you using ENLIST or are you aware of ENLIST program? You are? Yeah. Those who are not, I think I'll be talking about it. So in fact, ENLIST is a program that gives about 6,000 journals and 97,000 books to college libraries, and we charge 5,000 rupees per annum. Gujarat Knowledge Consortium has already given funds for every college in Gujarat. So you don't have to pay even that 5,000. So Kruti would be talking more about how to access. And okay, next please. Why do you go to libraries? The libraries steer curiosity, inspire, provide affordable access to knowledge resources and information. So you go there to read and learn. You go there to meet and discuss. That is more important. You need to meet to your colleagues, discuss about it, shape and develop things. Whatever idea you have to shape it up and develop. And libraries support serendipity and interdisciplinary research. What is serendipity? You must have seen that picture, serendipity. How many of you have seen the serendipity picture? There's a movie, US movie, Serendipity. You have seen. Okay. So serendipity basically means that you are not looking for that, but you just found it. It's just accidental. And sometimes accident doesn't happen. You always have been thinking about it and then those accidents happen. Next, please. This is an example. Benzene ring. How many of them you have chemistry background? Chemistry background, good. So you know about benzene. Benzene is a problem, people were trying to discover as to how is benzene stable. Benzene structure cannot be stable because every carbon has 4 valencies. That means 4 molecules have to be attached to the carbon. So if you take a string, the benzene structure doesn't fit into it. This scientist called Kekulé, he has been working on benzene design, how benzene molecule is stable. He's been thinking about it and he had a dream. The dream, he saw a snake catching its own tail. He saw that snake catching its tail. It's running and trying to catch its own tail. And then he thought this is what is benzene structure. Now you can see that there is a inside circle where the dotted lines are there. According to him, these dotted lines are something that moves from one molecule to another. So when they move, every carbon has 4 valencies. Otherwise, it is only 3, and if it is 3, then the molecule is not stable. So this is like discovering serendipity of discovering by serendipity. And he said, let us learn to dream, because he won Nobel Prize for it. He won Nobel Prize twice, and both of the time he discovered in dream. Next. Discovery of penicillin, as you know. Penicillin was also discovered by accident. So in fact, he was trying to create a culture of a bacterium, and then he found that there is some fungus growth in it. And that's how the penicillin was. He was a president of a company, pharmaceutical company. They had several, formulas or chemicals, and they were trying to find a stable molecule for it, but they were not able to do that. And if they had it, there was solution to many diseases from that. So he said, why don't we put it on the web and ask for design of these chemicals, stable design of these chemicals. His board said, you have, top chemists sitting in the lab, you have collaboration with the universities. I don't think you can get anything when you put it on the web. He said, let's try it. So they put those chemicals onto the web and asked that anyone who has a solution for it, give it to us, we'll pay for it, whatever your fee is. Next, please. For about 10-15 days, nothing happened. But within a month, next. Within a month, they had answer for every formula that they have put on the web. Surprisingly, the answer did not come from the chemist. The answer came from physicist, mathematician, aviation engineering, and biologist. The reason was that chemist knew that this is impossible to put this particular chemical in a stable format. But the others did not know. They had the advantage of not knowing that this is an impossible situation. But they had their own method to it. They approached from a different side, and they had found a answer. So this particular gentleman, who was a president of a pharmaceutical industry, has started his own website called Innocentive. You can go to this site, visit it, Innocentive. So Innocentive is nothing but they pose a problem and invite answers from the general public. Next, please. If you look at the current information industry scenario, you have all kind of, you have print publisher, electronic publisher, content creators, indexing and abstracting services, syndicators and informatories, document delivery services, aggregators, verticals and porticals. A whole range of people are there. In fact, conventional publishing is only 7% of the entire industry. You won't believe the kind of amount Google earn from their search engine business. It is huge. The total publishing industry that you know of, Wiley and Science Direct and Springer, they are only 7%. Rest of it is all Google, Yahoo's, and that kind of industries. Next, please. Sourcing e-resources through library consortium. Now, before I come to the consortium, I would like to tell you that there are two kind of resources that are available now on the web and that are peer reviewed. One is open access and another is fee based. So when I'm talking about the consortium, it is fee-based. When you pay, then only you get access to them. The open access is something that is available free of cost to anybody who wants to search. So there are open access journals and open access institution repository. Kruti is going to cover that in more detail. So I'll be talking about the consortium-based subscription. Next, please. What is a library consortium? Library consortium is nothing but collectively institutions come together and buy resources. That's what. But in India, the government, because the government funds education, they have given funds to the library consortium like InflibNet, and InflibNet in terms buy resources for colleges and universities. So I'll be talking in detail about the consortium that InflibNet supports. Next, please. These are the consortium that are there in India. Most of them are government funded. INDEST AICT consortium, which is run by IIT Delhi. It is like for IITs, NITs, and triple ITs, and basically centrally funded technical institutions, 65 of them, and they give access to about 12,000 journals. CSIR eJournal Consortium, it is for CSIR lab. There are 40 CSIR labs. For them, this consortium is there. UGC Infonet Digital Library Consortium. This is by InflibNet. I'll be talking in detail about it. DAE Consortium, that is for Department of Atomic Energy. MCIT, that is Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, about 18 institutions. FORSA, IM Libraries have a consortium. And there is a medical consortium, which is called ARMED. And there is this consortium for ICAR institution, Indian Council of Agriculture Research. It is called, I think it's called Agriculture Resource Consortium. Next, please. So I'll be talking in detail about UGC Infonet Digital Library Consortium. Next. The consortium was dedicated to the nation in 2003 by Honorable President, the then and Honorable President. From January 2004, access was given to about 50 universities, and 50 more universities were added. Right now, we have about 2004 universities and other institutions that are affiliated to UGC. It includes 12 new central universities also. Next, please. So we provide access to about 8,000 journals to 204 universities. Next, please. This is governance. I don't think I need to talk about it. Next. So we have 152 universities, 37 central universities, and 204 associate members. Now these associate members are universities which are not entitled for UGC Infonet. They are not 12B universities, but they can join the consortium and they have to pay their own subscription fee. So they can select the resources they want and they can join the consortium. So total about 400 members are there, including 208 core members and 204 associate members. Next, please. These are the resources that we get. So most of these resources are available to core members, but associate members can select the resource that they need, pay for it, and get access to that. Next, please. These are the bibliographic databases and legal databases that we subscribe. Next. The access model, as I was talking, access is available in university on the IP base. So every university that you have has certain sets of IP addresses. So access is available on IP, and as long as you are on those campus, you can have access. As soon as you leave the campus, your access is also gone. So now, of course, I was talking about the technologies. Now there are technology available where you can access e-resources even sitting at home. So in fact, we are also working on those technologies, but there are technologies that are available.
For paid subscription, they own the responsibility of the authenticity or data.
Yeah, of course. See, like for example, you are from this institute, Labor Institute. You want JSTOR, which one of the databases. Your IP addresses will be passed on to the publishers. So you will have access here and there. But if you want your scientists to have the access at home, then you can buy that technology and provide that access. Yes, so the onus is on you how to do that. So there are number of technologies available. VPN is one of them. This is the website for the consortium. Next. We maintain a comprehensive website where we have tutorial for each resources, and there are search interfaces where you can search journals that are available in the consortium. The member universities can go, click at members, find out what are the resources that they are getting. So all those details are there. Next, please. Like this is search interface. You can search the members. Next. Like for example, these are the members, and these are the resources that are available to a given member. So for every member, these kind of interface is available. Next, please. So one can search journals, one can see alphabetically, and journals are also divided in the classification orders. For example, social sciences, technologies, these 8,000 journals, how they are divided. We also have access resource management system, which basically tells about how many times articles are downloaded from a resource. So generally you can get that access and a comparison as to who has downloaded most and how your university stands in the queue. Next, please. The other program is Enlist, which is for colleges. Next. So Enlist program basically provides access to 97,000 books and 6,000 journals to colleges. It is almost available free of cost to the colleges. Next. There is other component where access to UGC Infonet resources are given to technical universities, and Web of Science is given to universities, and of course college component is there. We have more than about 3,200 members that are already enrolled for colleges. Next. These are the resources that are available. This is basically a subset of what we provide to universities. It's only a subset. The model is different. We pay one subscription for every 200 colleges. So say what we pay for Gujarat University is good for 200 colleges. That is how this model is sustainable. Next, please. And these are the books that we have. So you have all the major publishers are there. You have Ebury, Cambridge Books, Oxford University Books, Taylor and Francis, Springer, Sage. So all these books are available from major publisher. In fact, what we do is that we provide access to all the books that are available in a platform. For Springer, they have about 20,000 books. I think Springer has, 18,000 books. These 18,000 books are made open to. So colleges at a given time have 18,000 books. Depending on the usage, the books that are used more often are selected finally or are purchased. Right now you have access to about 1,19,000 books. Depending on the usage, the books that are purchased, that are accessed more, are purchased. Next, please. Implementation. Next. So implementation is like, unlike in university model where the access is open on IP addresses, here we provide user ID and password to each and every user. So in colleges, if you have 2,000 students, 2,000 login IDs are made and given it to the colleges. So this is how it is different. But every user has to come, authenticate himself on the Enlist program, and then he's taken to the publisher website. The access is directly from publisher website, but authentication is from Enlist website. Next, please. This is how it is growing. Every month we have user. Every day we have new colleges that are registered. And we started with about 1,000 colleges in 2011, and then we already have more than 3,000 colleges. So those of you who are from colleges are not yet enrolled, please come and enroll yourself. Next. This is how those colleges are divided in various states. Gujarat, of course, is next to Maharashtra. It should be more than Maharashtra because the payable amount is already given it to us by Gujarat Knowledge Consortium. Next. So current status is that we have 3,365 colleges registered for it, and more than 4,86,000 user ID and login has been issued to people. And even we give group login ID and passwords also in case the actual user's information is not available. Next. This is the Enlist website. We also have, this is Excel, I think Skruti will be talking about it in detail. Next, please. We also have a method where we provide, in case the article is not available in Enlist, we provide from UGC Infonet. So the article request information is also available. Then top 10 colleges that use more often are listed on the site. Next. So these are the recent 10 best users in Enlist. Now I'll be touching upon other resources of InflibNet. Next, please. So we have a database called INDCAT, where about 150 universities who contributed their record. In fact, their catalog, their books catalog is given to us in different formats. We merge it and made a union catalog. So this union catalog is available, which is about 1 crore 27 lakhs books are available. And if you make a search in it, you'll be able to get books that are available in various universities, including your own university. And you can initiate an interlibrary loan request also using this interface. We have a thesis database, which is like 2,53,000 record, serials database, and an expert database called Vidwan. So you all are invited to register yourself with Vidwan. And this database is available in open access. Anyone can use this database. In fact, we have signed up with Google. And you'll be, when you search Google, you'll also be able to search books available in INDCAT. Next, please. Next, please. We have this repository called Shodhganga, where PhD theses submitted to various universities are available in this database. There are more than 13,000 PhD theses that are already there, and more are being uploaded. So Gujarat University, in fact, almost all universities, you have registered for this topic before anyone has done that. So you are all invited to put your synopsis into Shodhganga 3. Next, please. We have this platform called OJAS, Open Journal Access System, where we invite universities and colleges to start their open access journals, or if you already have a journal, you can host it on our platform. So there are about 14 journals that are available in this. And you're all invited. If you have a journal, you can put it here, or you can start a new journal. Next, please. We have another source called Infoport, where we basically index open access resources available in India. So there are several portals that are available in various disciplines, like Intute is one of them. So we only concentrate on Indian resources. So it's kind of a catalog of Indian open access resources, including journals and books. Next. We also have an institution repository where all the publications that we have, including Planner, including Caliber, we have annual proceedings, annual reports, other publications, they are all available full text from this repository called Institution Repository at InflibNet. Next, please. This EPG Pathshala. EPG Pathshala is a program funded by National Mission on Education through ICT, where contents are being developed in 77 subjects. The library science content are being developed by us, and information technologies content are being developed by Gujarat University in collaboration with the InflibNet Center. Likewise, we have 77 subjects. So we have appointed PIs for about 50 of these subjects and looking for other subject coordinators. The content are already available. As soon as we get content, they are uploaded onto the thesis, onto this portal. Now, e-content are a bit different from the content that you generally come across. There are 4 components to this e-content. One of the component is, of course, e-text. You look at the text. The second is self-learning, which is some kind of a PPT with lot of animations and graphics, where you can learn yourself. It's basically, the voiceover is there, so you can learn it at your own pace. Third component is self-assessment, where you can assess yourself. Once you have, you can go through objective type examination and you can find your own score. And the last component is that you learn more about it and other additional information. So every module that are available has these 4 components in it. Next, please. So just some other important link I'm giving. This is ResearchGate, where you can register as a scholar and then ask question. Somebody from the crowd will, give answer to your queries. Next. Academia.edu, again similar interface where you can register and put your queries. The queries would be answered by one of the registered persons. Mendeley is basically an interface where you can download records. It's basically a reference manager kind of a thing. When you collect references, download it in it, and then you can manipulate with that. The idea is that once you write an article or write a thesis, the citation would come in the pattern that you want. Nature have their own style, Chicago Style Manual has own style. So the style in which you want, this can give you an output of that. Of course, you are managing your references, which are important. Next. There are some other free reference management tools that I have listed here. I'll be leaving this PPT with the organizers. Whoever is interested can take that. Next. ORCID is another initiative where you can register, add information about you. It's like Linked kind of a platform, but that is a unique ID given to every researcher. So once you have this ID is recognized by several other. It's kind of a, I would say, it's an initiative where research ID is issued to you have a unique ID, and that unique ID works in several databases. So, in fact, they've started in November 2012, and they already have more than 3 lakh registrations. So this is very popular. Next. Research ID. This is it's quite similar to ORCID, but Research ID is by Web of Science, Thomson Reuters publishers. So this also one can create. Next. So that's it. Thank you. And my colleague Kruti would be giving examples from various resources to you. If you have any question to ask, I'll be happy to answer. Open access is a model which is alternate to toll-based, call it toll-based access to resources where you have to pay. The philosophy is that when you publish a journal, or rather you publish an article, you are working in an institution, faculty in an institution is working for it, is paid for doing research, and he publishes an article which is toll-based. Okay. And why would one publish an article in toll-based? That's a different story. Because if you have a chance, you would publish an article that has a high impact. And most high impact journals are toll-based. So you would, by default, you would publish in a journal that has a higher impact. Science, Nature, Elsevier, Science Publisher. So publish it. So you are being paid by university, and you write an article for which you are paid, you published in a toll-based journal, and the same university has to buy that research again. So they are paying twice. Once they pay to you for writing article, and again they pay to the publisher for getting that article back to the university. So the open access philosophy is all about it, that we should discourage content from toll-based journals. But the fact of the matter is, you as a researcher would like to publish in toll-based journal because they are high. And if you look at historically, earlier nobody wanted to come into the publishing business. This was all by scholarly societies like American Chemical Society, American Physical Society. All these societies used to publish articles, and that was low cost. But slowly and gradually, especially after Second World War, the number of articles that came out from university were too many. And these societies were not able to cope with that kind of infrastructure. So they encouraged publishers to come into this business. They were rather invited. Now gradually what has happened is that these prices have gone mad. I mean, if you look at the consumer index, inflation rates, the inflation rate may not be more than 10 to 20%, depending on country to country. but the rise in prices is more than 203% over a period of 5 to 6 years, whereas the consumer index or inflation rate has not gone more than 28. So the entire open access phenomena came because of that. In fact, University of California had taken a movement. In fact, they gave a kind of a advisory to everyone in their university that stop publishing in Elsevier Science Journal, that the cost of journal is too high. But finally, it's a monopolistic market. In all, if you look at the publishers, there are only 18 to 20 publishers who are delivering 80% of the content. So if you want that 80% of the content, you have to go to that. Any more questions?
Actually, I belong to one self-finance institute. So I would like to know more about Enlist and regarding Inflibnet. I have the impression that only this university can be the member of this Inflibnet. So being a SFI, what is the procedure or like benefit that the faculty can get from this sources?
Well, as of now, we don't look at aided and non-aided colleges. Every college is eligible, but there is a problem. This AICTE had given some mandate that every college affiliated to AICTE has to subscribe to resources. So if we are one of the colleges that are imparting programs, supported by AIC or recognized by AICTE, there is a problem. We can't enroll them because Enlist is a government-funded program, HRD program. AICTE is also HRD based. So unless there is the resolution must come from them. But, professional, that particular issue.
Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
स्वाध्यायः परमं तपः
ઇન્ફોર્મેશન અને કમ્યુનિકેશન ટેકનોલોજીના નવતર ઉપયોગથી જ્ઞાનના ભંડાર ખોલી આપતો મુક્ત અને મોબાઈલ શૈક્ષણિક કાર્યક્રમ એટલે કામધેનુ. ડોક્ટર બાબાસાહેબ આંબેડકર ઓપન યુનિવર્સિટી પ્રેરિત વિશ્વનો સૌથી અદ્યતન ક્લાસરૂમ ઓન વ્હીલ્સ. મુંબઈ ઇન્ટરઓપ 2012ની ચોથી એડિશનના ભવ્ય ઇન્ટરઓપ ઇવેન્ટમાં ડોક્ટર બાબાસાહેબ આંબેડકર ઓપન યુનિવર્સિટીને શૈક્ષણિક ક્ષેત્રે દાખવેલા એન્ટરપ્રાઇઝ, ડ્રાઇવ, ગ્રોથ અને એક્સલન્સ બદલ એજ એવોર્ડથી સન્માનિત કરવામાં આવી છે. યુનાઇટેડ બિઝનેસ મીડિયાના આઈટી ન્યૂઝલેટર ઇન્ફોર્મેશન વીક દ્વારા પ્રસ્થાપિત એજ એવોર્ડ મેળવનાર કોર્પોરેટ સંસ્થાઓ પૈકી BAOU જ એકમાત્ર શૈક્ષણિક સંસ્થા છે. વિવિધ અભ્યાસક્રમોમાં પ્રવેશ 1 નવેમ્બરથી 31 ડિસેમ્બર દરમિયાન ઉપલબ્ધ. આજે જ આપના નજીકના અભ્યાસ કેન્દ્રનો સંપર્ક કરો. ડોક્ટર બાબાસાહેબ આંબેડકર ઓપન યુનિવર્સિટી.